Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, From Pressure to Performance, 3 Must-Solve Maintenance Challenges. I'm delighted to have you with us. Before we get started, a quick note, this session is being recorded and you'll receive a link to the full recording and resources after the webinar, so no need to worry if we miss anything. And one more quick reminder before we dive in, we're excited to offer an exclusive $400 discount to registration for the upcoming IMC conference. If you caught the QR code on the screen before the session, that's your direct link to claim the offer. Don't worry if you missed it. We'll also include the QR code in the thank you email after the webinar so you can easily access your discount. Today's session is all about helping industrial organizations turn mounting pressures, workforce shortages, digital transformation, and sustainability demands into work performance opportunities. We'll explore how maintenance leaders can strengthen workforce resilience, embrace AI-driven operations, and meet ESG goals with data-driven strategies. We're joined by 3 outstanding speakers who bring deep expertise and real-world perspective to this discussion. Terrence O'Hanlon is our host for today. Terrence is CEO of ReliabilityWeb.com and is a recognized thought leader and popular keynote presenter. Terrence has dedicated his career to advancing reliability and operational excellence. Joining Terrence, we also have Candi Robison, Vice President of EAM Strategy and Innovation at Ultimo. Candi brings over 25 years of experience in maintenance and reliability and is known for helping organizations connect people, process, and technology to deliver operational results. And finally, we have Berend, Head of EAM Insights at Ultimo. Berend leads Ultimo's global thought leadership and helps organizations transform technical complexity into measurable business value. His expertise bridges innovation and strategy, enabling asset managers worldwide to realize the full potential of their EAM investments. Together, they'll walk us through the findings of the Ultimo Maintenance Trend Report, revealing where organizations are succeeding and where they must adapt to thrive in 2026 and beyond. Terrence, I give it to you.
Thank you very much, Amy, and thank you very much for the team at Ultimo for preparing this webinar and giving us the space for these very important conversations. I'm super excited to be here, to be working with Candi and Berend. I had a great chance to go over to Ultimo headquarters in the Netherlands and meet them over there. I always loved Ultimo, and then they came up with this circle of collaboration that really started to get us to think beyond just maintenance for asset performance. And I was all in at that point in time. So I've known Candi for many years, Berend I've known for a few years, and we're really looking forward to bringing these conversations that seem to be highlighting and hopefully for you, the listening audience, creating some insights around challenges that almost regardless of what industry you're in, are very common across every place that we go. Ultimo and the team are seeing it. We're seeing it at Reliability Web. The industry associations are seeing it. And Ultimo prepared a really awesome report, if you haven't had a chance to read it, a trend report that we recommend you download from their website. And that's sort of driving the conversation that we're going to have today. I do want you to know there are some PowerPoint slides, but you're in for a treat. This is not really a PowerPoint presentation. We're just going to have a conversation. We haven't scripted it. We've prepared a little bit just so we kind of know what the topics are, but it should be fresh and new, and everyone's welcome to get their opinions out. But hopefully what will happen with the opinions is that, again, for you, the reason we're doing this is for you, the listening audience, to find those insights. We're just going to have conversations to crack open maybe a new way of you looking at your same circumstances. That'll give you an opportunity to crack open a new path that you didn't think about before. Candi's been around the industry for a long time. I have, Berend has, and we see a lot. It's like I forget which insurance commercial is. We know a lot because we see a lot. We see how everybody's struggling. We see how some folks are fixing those struggles or at least getting by those struggles. And that's what we're here to talk about and share with you today. Candi, Berend, we're very welcome. Glad to have you. I'm here in your house. I'm glad to have this opportunity to have these conversations with you. I wish more and more we could bring conversations rather than presentations forward. So my hat's off for this concept. Thank you, Candi. Thank you, Berend.
We're thrilled to be here and share these thoughts. I was thinking about it last night. and getting really, really excited just about the conversation. And I think that was one of the things that Amy had said in our prep for this was, progressing along the slides, as you said, are really just a framework to keep us focused, because otherwise I think we could be on here all day. Which is I'm really excited for IMC. I think that that's going to be where this conversation is continued, and we get the opportunity to bring our customers and partners and other thought leaders into these really important topics about where the market's going.
Well,
Yeah,
and Berend,
likewise.
yeah,
I'm
Berend,
super happy to be here. I mean, getting to share the stage with two legends, which is what I consider both of you to be, feels fantastic. And, rightfully, as Candi said, this conversation could go on forever. So it's actually really good that we have the slides to keep us honest.
well, and the fact that it seems like there's this bunch of people, community that does maintenance on the assets, and then there are these EAM and CMMS software providers. Oftentimes, it seems like the software providers are a little disconnected from what that day-to-day operation is on the plant. We find just the opposite at Ultimo. It's almost like, I don't know how you get your insights for what's life like on the actual plant floor, but it seems like you've designed, I guess maybe we could start there. You've designed for the maintainer. Not, most of the time the big systems are designed for the people who need the reports and the dollars and of course, Ultimo does that, but it seems like you've really kept the maintainer in mind.
I love that. That's one of the things that I say a lot. Terrence is it's about being on the floor with the technicians and the operators, but it's all the way to the boardroom. So, addressing both ends of that need where you're sitting there with somebody talking about, how do we get to industry 4.8, 5.0, where we're at in this journey, but also the folks who are also going out and don't have mobile devices. They're still printing work orders. So it's making sure that we're a conduit between, even within their own organization, which you touched on, this circle of collaboration. It's about also having a system and a process that connects people throughout the organization.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, shall we get to our first discovery from the trend report?
Yeah. So that's another thing, Terrence, is that the trend report Ultimo does every 2 years. This was a year, and I think even it came out in July. So since I saw you in April at the reliability conference, really having the framework that's this massive endeavor that Berend led with, surveying customers and partners in the market, and then putting that into a report that we put out into the market, gives us real statistics around what we're seeing and what asset leaders are saying are priorities.
Yeah, it's quite an environment out there in the workforce. I mean, it seems like a perfect storm. We've been talking about this for 20 years, but now it's kind of seems like it's come to a crescendo. The workforce is aging. I resemble that remark. The workforce is aging. The new workforce that's coming in doesn't seem to have that. They didn't grow up with shop class and high school and things of that nature. They don't have the same technical underpinnings that the generations that came before had. It's just a really tough situation. And now we're onshoring in the United States, that Europe's growing, the need for maintainers, even though we've got all kinds of great technology tools, to me, the need for maintainers never been higher.
Yeah, it absolutely has never been higher. I mean, I heard this interview in, I think it was the New York Post, where you had the Ford CEO, Jim Farley, go out and say that he cannot fill 5,000 mechanic jobs. And he's offering, pays upwards of $120,000 a year. So that tells you enough about how deep that issue runs. But I think you're right, Terrence, in saying that there's a convergence, there's a perfect storm almost of all these factors, challenges that are reshaping the maintenance workforce as we know it today. And the aging workforce, absolutely, as the trend report also identifies, is the number one trend, right? You have 63% of respondents going out and saying that, most of their experienced professionals are getting closer to retirement age. And with that, you run the risk of years and years of institutional tribal knowledge almost, literally getting up and walking out the door. So what are you going to do? And then you have the new generation that's joining the workforce, right? So some of the people that you're hiring to join your team, they expect many different things, many different modes of working. It's all digital, it's all mobile, it's all augmented. So they are not looking to work the old-fashioned way, right? So on top of that, I also want to say that there's a skills gap that has been there for many years, will probably be there for years to come, and it seems to be widening, right? So across industries, I'm going to say companies are struggling to find those skilled maintenance professionals. So that's your perfect storm right there. You have experience leaving, you have skills that are really hard to replace, and you have new workers that are demanding modernization.
Can we consider a CMMS or an EAM a repository for that tribal knowledge? Is that, where should that tribal knowledge that's about to walk out the door live?
It's a really interesting question. And I usually get back to something that Bill McDermott said, right? CEO for ServiceNow. He has this great argument that he makes around how do you move from being a system of record to a system of action? So what you're describing, how do you capture all of that tribal knowledge? That is a system of record, right? You're entering data into essentially a database system, and you have many different ways of querying the data and getting the insights. But that is all action driven. You, as the human component in that relationship, you need to really know what you're doing. You need to know what you're looking for to get to these meaningful insights. So how do you then shift from this system of record to a system of action, where no longer are you sort of the bottleneck in that equation? You're actually going to profit from highly digitized and digital labor that is bringing the information to you at the point of need, at your time of need, in many different sort of multimodal ways and fashions.
Yeah, Berend, I was just going to say, I had written down some notes to make sure that, and system of record versus system of action. And, being a nerd, this is something that I've actually challenged Berend on, because I have a hard time with accepting that an EAM solution is a system of record, because that, it's not just data that goes in and then sits there. It's more dynamic than that. You're integrating to your ERP, you're integrating to, Esri if you're monitoring linear solution. Like there's lots of, but he's right in that it doesn't perform the action there. It's the people, the process that's driving that forward into the results coming from your EAM solution today. And I think that takes us, without spoiling the next topic, where we're going really rapidly, again, within, a 6-month time period, seeing what Ultimo has done in the investment of AI infused technology to automate this process, but bringing it back to workforce challenges. That's where we're going to see the skills changing, right? It's this generation coming in that is really looking for exciting technology and innovation in leading the process going forward, so that they're going to, I think, be really excited about where the market's going in that automation and having digital coworkers.
Well, I love hearing you say exciting when it comes to maintenance. So many people aren't excited about it. I am. I'm sorry, but I wake up excited about maintenance. I'm super excited about it.
I am so offended, Terrence, when people say that maintenance isn't sexy.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is awesome. I talk about it every day.
Well, can that relate to what Berend said about the skills gap? How do we get this younger generation to believe this is cool? Robot dogs inspecting assets, all the cool AI that you're putting into the system that you work with. There are cool things, or it didn't used to be very cool, but they're getting to be more and more. And the gadgets that they have, the lasers and the infrared and the ultrasound. I mean, there's really a lot of cool stuff. Bernd, does that have anything to do with filling? Do we need to make it more attractive to get these people that are going to adopt these skills that are short right now? But we need people, certainly at the end of the day, you got to want to come to this profession. I think a lot of them don't even know this is a profession.
No, it's a fantastic question. I mean, it's both on one end of the spectrum, advertising for the fantastic sort of opportunities that are out there in maintenance and reliability, but it's also at the essence, I want to say, addressing fear as an emotion. Because what most people tend to do when they're faced with change and radical change at that, they grow fearful, right? They sort of resent what is coming and they're not cooperative. They're not sort of on board with the innovation. So my piece of advice would be to always invest in people. You're already investing in your assets, but in parallel, invest in people, right? We work in an industry that is very much rooted in the physical world, right? We have real people and they're managing, maintaining, operating real assets. And yes, you have technology, and technology can set you up for success, but the difference between failure and success is the human factor. So what you want to do is empower your teams with the right tools, show how they can work and how they can benefit from using the technology so that you have both the physical tools on the shop floor, but also the digital ones in your arsenal, in your portfolio to get to the meaningful insights, to get to the meaningful data-driven, confident decisions that you want to take.
Yeah, I think Amy, I think we can move to the next slide and start talking about that. I think one of the things that I heard this year, and this is something that is like from North America, is we're seeing the market change. There was a statistic that came out that said, Americans would like 80% of manufacturing to come back to the United States, but only 17% were interested in having a job in manufacturing. And it's the idea of what working on the line or working in a manufacturing space even looks like now. Like I think that's sort of this antiquated idea about working in a factory. I don't know, Berend said the New York Times released, the CEO of Ford said they're looking for 5,000 mechanics that are going to make at least a 6-figure income, and they cannot find those skills in the market today. Yet the job market in the US is very depressed. So why? How can we solve some of those gaps and get to some intelligent solutions around what does it actually look like to work on the line making cars today, right?
It's not the old smokestack industries. I was looking on my phone earlier only because I captured a quote. I can't find it right now that I wanted to use on this webinar. Somebody was asking, I was looking for his name. They call him the godfather of AI. If he was advising people now, younger people, what they should do for their career, he said, become a plumber. Not become a lawyer, not become a doctor, not very noble professions and everything, but become a plumber in the age of AI. They were asking it specifically in the context of AI.
Yeah.
Because AI can't do a pipe. We can't undo a pipe. You need our hands to do that. So
it's true, but there's a piece of that, Terrence, that's like, again, going into what does modern day plumbing look like? I can actually shut my water supply off. I travel a ton, and I had an incident where ice maker malfunctioned while I was away and just started pouring water out of my freezer onto my hardwood floors. When the plumber came and we got it fixed, he actually put a sensor so that I know if something's malfunctioning, I can get an alert. I can be in Nunspeet in the Netherlands and see that something's going on and shut my water supply off at home. Again, where we are today in maintaining critical assets and infrastructure is absolutely the most important thing we can be doing. That's what's kept me in this for 25 years is we're not doing the same thing we did 25 years ago. It's radically different, and we need tools that also look really different.
Super interesting. Bernd, we didn't even have ice makers 25 years ago. So now look, he's got the innovation, but with every innovation comes another layer of potential failure. I mean, at the end of the day. So very interesting metaphor with that. What do you say about that, Bernd?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting metaphor. I mean, as we start to move into this new topic, obviously, what a lot of people are saying is how can you fill that skills gap or start to bridge it? And they're looking at AI to do that. But when I look at AI, I really see that as a double-edged sword, right? Yes, I see the potential, but at the same time, I think we're all sort of saturated with AI messaging, myself included, because everything is now suddenly AI and it's everywhere. But too often, what we only hear about is all of that future potential, but that's not present reality, right? And it's sort of what the trend report tries to address as well. You see that in our findings, half of the organizations are exploring these things, right? AI, digital twins, contextual intelligence, but many still see AI as being highly experimental, and they're waiting for it to mature and a higher level of maturity before they invest, before they commit. So it's really easy to get swept away and get lost in that hype. But the real question is simple, right? What can AI do for you, not someday, but today?
Yeah, interesting. And I with maintenance, a lot of it is not intuitive.
Right.
In other words, you have to know things. You have to know some facts, because if it's just left to human intuition, it goes the wrong, it ends up going the wrong direction, because we're not good at connecting events over time. Or knowing that if we do this 6 months from now, this is going to happen, or a year from now, that's going to happen. Where we see AI is really being able to connect the dots between those human information sources over time, where we may not be as good at that. But I've been working on a body of knowledge around reliability for 26 years. You could start today, Bernd, you couldn't get through it ever. But I can put it AI, and it can summarize it in 10 minutes. And synthesize it in 10 minutes. So there's obviously some potential there. I'm wondering, does it do any of the things we're talking about? Does it have a role in the skills gap? Does it have a role in the aging workforce? Should you be sitting your aging workers down right now, putting them in front of Gen AI and just start the conversation? Let them voice record everything that they know. They all have these little notebooks, sitting in there, how to start up the boiler, how to turn off that substation, they've got these little notes squirreled away. And eventually Tony in his notebook retire. And then what happens? Kind of a thing. There's a lot of, like you called it, I think, tribal knowledge. Does AI play a role there?
Yeah, I would say so. Absolutely. I mean, it's an interesting perspective to consider. What I think is going to happen is that AI is going to support the creation of almost a baseline knowledge equity, if you will, across teams, right? So that your most junior technician will know about as much as your most seasoned technician. So it is going to raise the bar substantially. And it will do that by supporting the automation of some of the more repetitive, some of the more mundane, and usually admin heavy tasks. And what that does is it actually creates a compounding effect for me, because not only are you supporting some of those tasks, you're also freeing up very valuable time for your skilled human experts to do what they do best. And coincidentally, also what most people in maintenance love to do, which is working with their hands more. So you're realizing more hands-on tool time. Plus, the people that get this extra time because of the AI support now can suddenly start to address some of the high-value tasks that are within the organization. They can focus on improvements, they can focus on upskilling, etc. So it's this really interesting concept where you're going to have this top-heavy, tipsy-turvy sort of setting where AI is going to tip everyone over the edge and start to create the additional value that we all think it can bring.
It really brings two questions for me. What should maintainers be doing with their data right now to get ready for it? I think you framed it well. It was only the realm of geeks who were doing machine learning and things of that nature. And then all of a sudden now we could talk to it and it became everything for everyone. And it's obviously not everything for everyone at this point in time yet. Yep. But there seems to be enough potential to ask, what should maintainers be doing to get their data? Should they be doing anything to get their data house in order? And what should they be doing for their own personal competencies around AI? Do they have to go learn large language models and JSON formatting? What does the maintainer have to know about AI?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. I mean, first of all, the right time to start thinking about what do I need to do with AI was yesterday. The second best time to do that is today. So the real crux is you need to start. So start somewhere, because AI is this fantastic thing. But as we rightfully, I think, concluded, all of the maintenance work still happens in this physical world. And I mean that to say that AI can take you to the water, but it cannot make you drink, right? So the real value for me lies in integrating it sort of thoughtfully. And you want to do that in such a way that you empower the human. And one of the things where, what are we going to do for the individual, the maintenance engineer, etc. I think it starts with building trust. Because right now, there's still this sentiment of, is AI going to take my job? Is it going to replace what I can do, at neck-breaking lightning speeds? And the answer is yes and no. Some of those jobs, they will get replaced, but the only thing that really matters is how you approach AI, because you're still going up against your human counterpart. And who's going to win? The person that is well-versed, that has invested the time and the effort to get acquainted with how AI functions and how it can help support their day-to-day, or the person has been standing on the sideline being very skeptical about the application of AI and has not made that investment. So you're going to always lose against the person or the organization in a larger scale that did take that plunge, that did take the jump on AI. So the best thing is start, right? And addressing the data issue, it's something that you hear a lot, right? Is my data, is it good enough? Can I actually use AI given the data that I have? It's a valid question. At the same time, some of the AI functionalities that you see agnostically in the sort of CMMS and EAM platforms left and right, they're actively addressing this. So what they're actually doing is they're supporting you in cleaning up the data, in creating better data points, etc. So a great example that I want to share is how AI is helping address mean time to repair, right? The MTTR is a very valid metric that we all look at, and it's a big challenge. But what we think is that 80% of your mean time to repair now is spent on getting to a proper diagnosis. You're diagnosing a problem. And that is mostly down to poor communication and also incomplete failure reports. So why not use AI functionalities to support slashing the MTTR? What you're doing effectively is Ultimo has an integrated AI feature that captures sensory observations. So if you go out in the field, you walk on the shop floor, who are the most knowledgeable people who not only know what a machine is supposed to do, but they also know what it's supposed to sound like. They even know, the vibration patterns. They understand what it's supposed to smell like. Those are your frontline workers. So if you can capture all of these sensory observations that they have effectively without too much pressure and sort of admin heavy burden on that individual user, you're working towards creating stronger failure reports. You're getting to a faster mean time to repair, and you're addressing, which is really relevant for the sort of boardroom conversation that you will have about this, you're effectively addressing uptime. And if you understand that downtime is such a huge cost sink, right? And downtime, I've seen figures upwards of $100,000 per hour in manufacturing. Even the smallest reduction in MTTR supported by this AI functionality is set to deliver a massive return on investment.
That, Candi, that goes back to the right, because if you're not going to get replaced by AI, you're going to get replaced by somebody who knows how to use AI to do that job.
And that's exactly what I was just going to say. It's also addresses your question about, like, should the first place our customers go is their data, to clean their data before they can get to AI? And I don't think so. I think what Berend just said is they have a place to start today that isn't a massive data cleansing project. It is a upskilling in where they can use, AI to augment their talent today, their, the technicians today, that then goes straight to the boardroom and delivers, real outcomes in terms of some of those bigger cost savings and better uptime. It also starts to bring our customers towards, proactive and predictive maintenance that has been sort of a barrier, I think, since, forever.
Yeah, I'm personally working to make sure everything I know about maintenance, reliability, and asset management is known by AI. I want to make sure that it knows. And so I just, I do agree with you, Bernd, that we're early in the pendulum. People go crazy. They hate it. And then all of a sudden they love it. And the reality is really somewhere in the middle. And it's really great to see companies like yours embracing this technology in the right way.
It's very funny, Terrence. When I was at the reliability conference in April, I went to do a podcast, and as I was walking in the room, they were like, "Hey, Candi, how's it going? How's the conference?" Good. And they said, "What's your pet peeve?" And I'm like, "Pet peeve?" And they said, "Yeah, what's your biggest pet peeve?" And I went, "AI." It's so out there. Everybody wants to talk about it. It's like the the great like panacea, it's going to solve everything, but then it's so hyped that it's sort of lost its context, and it's sort of, how can we actually bring this back to reality and tie it to some real outcomes. And I think that was sort of my joke, was, yeah, like my biggest pet peeve right now is AI. And then like 2 months later, Ultimo became like AI first. And so
As everybody has,
yeah, exactly,
it's interesting because I'm thinking to myself, maintenance sometimes is such a thankless task. The day goes wonderful, no breakdowns, no one hurt, no spills, but no one's going to run after that maintenance team out in the parking lot and say, "Thank you, nothing happened today." And you wonder if AI can take some of that, because there's no reinforcement for doing it right, because the results of no downtime happen later. It's the benefit is over there, kind of a thing, and we're such an instant gratification society. Maybe AI can tie that back to the maintainer. Look, by you doing this alignment, you're going to make the machine run 10 years longer and with less energy. The things that we don't do well as human leaders, to reinforce our maintainers that, yeah, right, what you're doing today it's not going to affect our profits today, but it's going to sure affect our profits over 10 years. It's going to be fantastic. But that reinforcement gets lost a lot. And I wonder if AI can play some role in the human reinforcement.
I think effectively what you're saying, I mean, that's my takeaway, Terrence, is you're setting yourself up for proper etiquette and maintenance strategy. And AI can reinforce this, absolutely, because AI has the capacity, unlike us humans, to do that reasoning, looking back at historical records dating back 5, 10, 20 years even, and come up with sensible suggestions. So where you're absolutely right, the unsung heroes of maintenance is a real thing. And you only ever get to see the maintenance staff if something goes wrong, which is, how do we flip this? How do we profit from everything they have to offer? And you can do that by supporting them in making the registrations, in making the logs that they create, etc., much more proficient and much more efficient and containing the right sets of data. So AI is there to suggest, but it's not going to do the work for you. As a human, you're still very much in the loop. So all of the great things that make us humans human, it's about capturing some of that knowledge and then passing it on and creating that level of knowledge equity almost.
Yeah. And I promise this is the last quote, but I heard a really great podcast, McKinsey podcast, and they were interviewing the CEO of Sanofi, and who's been a huge AI forward advocate within their company. And he said, AI isn't going to replace humans, or you won't lose your job because of AI, but you will lose your job if you are not using AI. And I think that's one of those shifts in that, yeah, we should all really be understanding where it's going in the context, and where agentic AI and what action that's going to drive with digital coworkers versus Gen AI today, and where that is helping, but you've got sort of a co-pilot versus a full digital coworker that's going to be aiding in some of those things like shift handover and the what Berend was describing before, right? There's going to be some really accelerated automated process that we're going to get to very rapidly.
Yeah, I mean, maintenance is workflows at the end of the day, and agentic AI is really great at handling workflows. And I think we should expect to see better CMMS and EAM data in the future as a result of that.
Yeah.
And agentic is wonderful too, because you need that sort of advisor in your ear that knows a lot, that's connecting all the dots that we can't keep in our memory. So it's really exciting to see where you're going with both of those. I can't wait. Maybe next year we'll do a recap and see where we went in 12 months with those two things. Because I'll bet you there's going to be a lot to talk about in your company 12 months from now.
Oh, it's even faster. I'm literally, I see it as the bookends of the reliability conference in IMC. There's been a massive progression just in that period of time. So from IMC to the next reliability conference, where are we going to be? I think we're working in far more accelerated timeframes in releasing innovation to the market. So I know from an Ultimo standpoint, we are definitely have made that investment massive investment in an EAM, augmented AI EAM solution to the market. So that commitment is definitely there, and you'll see it at IMC.
Great. Wow. Wow. You got me really excited now, Candi, for sure.
Amy, I think we can move to our last slide. Thank you. There we go. Yes. This is where I'm going to have to just be yanked off of stage. I think that one of my favorite topics is around that ESG pressures and sustainability compliance. Again, just in the last 8 months, seeing regulatory changes and where our customers are responding to that. I presented at the reliability conference our companies still investing in ESG based upon regulatory changes? And what does that look like? And there's been some excellent research done recently that's out in the market around what are we hearing from like the New York Climate Week and some of those big opportunities to hear where the market is still investing. I know from in our trend report, what we got was 43% of organizations are still absolutely investing in their ESG initiatives. That's not changing. If anything, that energy transition and looking at where energy plays a part in, again, we get all hyped up about AI, but guess what? That takes a lot of energy, a lot of water. So how are we balancing the resources, the natural resources? And I think companies are really looking at where that can be, reduction in carbon emissions and energy transition to renewable energy to power their plants, right? And I think that also is really exciting in looking at where that's still a top priority in the market today, even if it isn't to the government.
That's great. And I would, my own personal take on it is, take the political part of ESG and push it way over there and let the politicians talk about that. We're not politicians. We're technical and industrial people. And so then if we can just have a conversation without the politics on it, countries are pricing in carbon in aluminum. So you can buy aluminum from Canada, which is a low carbon producer. You can buy aluminum from America, which is a high carbon producer. And so now you're buying 50 tons of aluminum. Well, the American aluminum has more carbon in it than the Canadian aluminum does. If you're a country that's looking to be sustainable, you're going to buy the one with the lower carbon. It's going to become market, not political. It's going to become a market issue at the end of the day, a pricing issue. So it's here. So I wouldn't move away from an emphasis on ESG. We in Uptime Elements, we say any process that uses more energy or more resources than it requires is a failure. From a reliability standpoint, that's a failure. Why should we? We don't have any right to use the future resources of our children and our grandchildren wastefully. We have a right to use whatever we need, but we don't have a right to use things wastefully. And there is a lot. You've been in factories. I've been in factories. There is a lot of waste. There's a lot, which you could turn it the other way. There's a lot of opportunity. You have to be, it's a business. To me, CMMS has always been the business reporting system for maintenance, the accounting system of maintenance. And if we don't have a way to account for it, management doesn't care about it. They're not going to think much about our contribution to it. So I think it's huge. I think it's ridiculous to waste things, regardless of what the climate does or regardless of what the planet does. It's just ridiculous to waste things. There's no reason to do it. So I'm all fully on board on ESG, and I think that CMMS plays a major role. Right? Where what are the roles that CMMS plays? I know it's record keeping, but how do we get our arms around it as maintainers who sometimes have a company department called ESG, that we have to go figure out. It's not just a thing. There's an actual department. Where's the maintainer in relation to ESG?
So I think, that it's really important. It's one of the things that I said, it's sort of the, larger view of where energy intersects with having tools to monitor energy consumption on your assets. It becomes another barometer for how your assets are functioning, and all the way to large manufacturing plants moving to renewable energy, like wind and solar. So there's sort of those two parts to the bigger change in energy consumption. But it's really looking at the reliability and maintenance of your assets. If they're running the way they should be, they're not going to be consuming as much energy. They're not going to, you can manage the consumption and the carbon emission by having a maintenance plan that has that as a focus, right? And I think, like you just said, ESG is a part of an EAM solution. I think that's one of the things, again, that I looked at as a huge differentiator when I came to Ultimo, is that connection in our process and how we look at the product. That's a combined that's combined in our process. So ESG is about the health, safety, and environment of how you're maintaining your assets, right? I think that is critical to the investment, and why we see that as still being one of the top 3 priorities for our clients today is, regardless of what the regulations are saying, it's still an investment they're making in the future.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I was a crazy story. I was at a soup company. I won't say which one. And they were putting solar panels, like you were saying, on the core. This was where their corporate headquarters were also, and they were putting solar panels on the corporate headquarters on the day that I arrived, actually. But I went into the plant, and there was steam everywhere blowing from these steam traps. And I said to the maintainers, I said, it's a lot of steam. I can't help but notice the steam, and coming out. Don't you want to recycle that steam? Oh, we don't have time and people to check the steam trap. So on one side, they were putting solar panels on the, doing the right thing, putting the solar panels.
Right.
But on the other side, they didn't have enough personnel to perform effectively. About 50% of their traps were blown because they didn't have enough personnel. It's sort of it can be frustrating for the maintainer who wants to have traps that are functioning and not wasting energy and things of that nature, but may not have the corporate pull to get the resources, or may not know the right communication technique. Bernd, what were you going to say about that?
I love that story. I mean, I was going to say something similar, because I think what you're getting to is, how do you balance some of the ESG pressures that we have with the operational efficiency and the fact that you still have your daily quota to hit? And I think, at least for me personally, it's very much about how do you reframe that conversation? Because ESG is not pressure, it's performance. And in our trend report, we have Malavika Tohani, the research director for Vedantics. She has a piece there where she says something along the lines of, maintenance teams are now the architects of sustainability. And I like that a lot, because that makes them directly responsible for all of these sort of operational outcomes that drive some of these environmental, social, and governance goals. And the way I look at it, when you optimize maintenance, what you're doing, you're addressing efficiency and sustainability as well, because those go hand in hand. You have less waste, lower energy, and safer operations, and they can all be part of the same equation. So it's a win-win situation that you can create with this.
But you need that circle of collaboration.
That's right.
So we're coming up on time, but there was a question that came in that I did want to ask you guys for your thoughts on this. So are we training AI correctly, and do higher management are comfortable empowering AI? I'm not sure about the last part of that, but I think the gist is, are we training AI correctly, and are the higher management comfortable empowering AI? So again, it kind of goes to that two sides of the conversation.
Well, the training is mysterious. The training on LLMs, on large language model, is mysterious. In theory, all human knowledge. But human knowledge is messed up. Tiachi Ono said he'd be surprised if humans were right 50% of the time. You got to kind of take that, with a grain of salt. Now, companies, like you say, like Sanofi and those, they're taking their not large language models, making small language models,
Right.
so to speak, so that they can kind of control what that model actually knows. So are we training AI right? Well, it's already the Wild West. And
Yeah.
it's more like we're going to break things for a little while, not be right for a little while, because this is just a frontier right now. It's the first generation of the frontier. We're going to break things. We're going to mess up, and we're not going to be politically correct and all that kind of stuff. You can make your arguments on either side of that, on either side of that. Eventually, if you're worried about AI training, I believe that it's going to be smart business, just like ESG is, to trend towards better training for AI and more specific training, more knowledge domain training that you want it to do. So I give them a break now about how they're training AI, because it is early days, and you give them a little bit of elbow room. But I think eventually that needs to come into a little bit better control. As far as upper management, at least my opinion, what I'm seeing is the other way. Usually maintainers are trying to get their message up. This is almost the other way around. Every CEO is currently asking, what are we doing with AI in every area of their business? So you really need, if you're a maintainer and you have not yet heard that knock on the door because the CEO wants to know what your plans are, you better have some plans, at least make them sound good. And have some dreams and some desires, like Berend said, learn some things about it, and be able to answer that question when the knock does come on the door, because it will. It's not the other way around, where maintenance is going to have to push for AI support. Last but not least, there's an AI project at your company. Join it. Yeah. Go join it. Find out what you can do. Sit in on the meetings. Volunteer. Do anything you can do in your company's AI program to move that forward, your big company AI program. Sorry, Bernd, you go ahead.
No, my comment was going to be to the same effect. I mean, if you look at what is the difference between what upper management is doing and what they're thinking about AI, for them, AI is framed as strategy, right? The question is, what can AI do for the company, and what can it do for the bottom line? Then you get to the shop floor, and it's highly personal, because that becomes a discussion of, what can AI do for me? So when it comes to training these models, for me, I'm a big believer in sort of a bottom-up approach, or AI adoption, right? Figuring out what it can do for you. Because when AI starts to help technicians to save time, it starts to improve data quality, or it makes your troubleshooting process so much easier, you're creating real impact that is then going to cascade throughout the organization. So it starts small, but as you said, Terrence, you need to dream big, because the potential is there. And the final thing I wanted to say about this has been really eye-opening for me, is the realization that the AI, as we know it today, is going to be the worst AI that we know in our lifetime. So this is only going to exacerbate and get crazier and crazier, and the potential is just almost limitless.
Well, imagine a CEO going through all these struggles all day, every day, with everybody in the company, but then he goes into AI. What can I give me 3 ideas to improve my company? How brilliant you are, Mr. CEO. How did you come up with such a great question? You're so wonderful and smart to even ask me that question. The reinforcement is incredible. The emotional reinforcement that they've built into it now. It's obviously,
that was, so something else I just read was this really questionable statistics that someone got back, and when they asked ChatGPT where it came from, it was like, well, that's what you wanted me to tell you. And so the bias that is in, depending on how you prompt it, it's just basically like, how do I look today? Do you like this outfit? Like, you're just setting it up. So like I said, we could spend hours, but I'm really happy that we're going to be together in person in 3 weeks, so we can continue these conversations at IMC. That's going to conclude our webinar. As we said, if there are any other questions for those on the line, or if you're watching the recording, please feel free to reach out to us. Here's Berend and my contact information. Everybody knows Terrence and how to get a hold of him. And like I said, we'll see you in person at IMC And there is one last slide that is the discount promotional code. Sign up now. Sign up, book your hotel, make your travel plans. I was sharing some pictures of past conferences with Berend recently. Who doesn't want to be in Marco Island in December? I mean, come on, it's going to be thought leaders. It's going to be an enormous amount of fun, and it's an absolutely beautiful location.
And I predict that they're going to be talking about the three things we're talking about. I think you really identified three really big trends. And IMC is about everything maintenance, reliability, and asset management. But I'm going to predict that these trends that Ultimo identified in their report are going to be very popular conversation points at the International Maintenance Conference.
Absolutely. Terrence, thank you so much for the opportunity. It's always wonderful to see you. And Berend, thank you also. I really appreciate your insights.
Likewise for the both of you.
And thank you to the Ultimo team for creating the space for these conversations. Sometimes, we're so busy presenting at people and sending them, just having these conversations, air it out. Go have this conversation with your team that you just heard us have. And you're going to find out there's a lot of knowledge, a lot of insight on your team.
Absolutely. All right. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you.